What if you never had to set an alarm clock again? Imagine a life with no Monday morning meetings, no soul-crushing commute, and no waiting until you're 65 to finally start living. Sounds like a fantasy, right? Something reserved for lottery winners or tech billionaires. You probably think, retire in 10 years? Me? That's impossible. But what if I told you that in the next decade, you could be finished with work forever? Not by getting lucky, not by inheriting a fortune, but by adopting a single, powerful mindset shift. The secret isn't about grinding yourself into dust for 40 years. It's about building a system, one that works quietly in the background, turning your dollars into employees until one day they make more money than you do. Most people will work their entire lives because they believe they have no other choice, but they're wrong. And today, I'm going to prove it to you. My name is Jake, and my job here is to cut through the noise. They tell you that finance is complicated, but the truth is the most powerful strategies are surprisingly simple. My goal is to show you how money really works so you can take control and get your money right. If you're tired of the confusing advice and want the straight talk on building wealth, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button if this video gives you some clarity. Now, before we get into the plan, we need to address the single biggest reason why most people fail at this. It's a psychological trap that almost everyone falls into. Most people approach investing with a completely broken mental model. They think it's a straight line. They put in $1 of effort, they expect to see $1's worth of results. But after a few years of saving aggressively, they look at their account and the results are nowhere near the effort they've put in. The line on the graph has barely moved, and so they come to a perfectly logical but tragically wrong conclusion. This doesn't work for me. Here's the trap. In the beginning, the system isn't working for you because you are the system. Your wealth isn't growing because of some magical force called compound interest. It's growing because of your brute force, your sweat, your savings. It's like pushing a giant snowball up a steep mountain. At first, it's small, it's incredibly heavy, and every single inch of progress depends entirely on you pushing from behind. Your money is still dormant. It hasn't reached the critical mass it needs to start moving on its own, and that's the silent killer of wealth. Our brains are wired for immediate feedback. We want to see progress now, but the mathematics of wealth are exponential, not linear. There's a period of slow, grinding, almost invisible growth, followed by an explosion. Most people quit during the quiet years, right before the avalanche is about to begin. They walk away from the snowball just before it reaches the peak of the mountain, never getting to experience the thrill of watching it roll down the other side, getting bigger and faster, all on its own. Today, we're going to deconstruct this journey. I'm going to show you the math that proves why those quiet years are so deceptive, and why the explosion that follows is inevitable if you just stay in the game. We'll talk about the exact moment the tipping point happens, how to build a snowball that can survive any storm, and how to make sure that when it starts rolling downhill, it turns into an unstoppable force that funds your freedom for the rest of your life. Let's start with the part of the journey that crushes most people's dreams, the uphill push. This is where you're fighting against financial gravity. You're putting in all the effort, but the results feel microscopic. Why does it feel so agonizingly slow? There's a simple math trick that explains this perfectly, and it's called the Rule of 72. This isn't just some boring formula. It's your early retirement clock, and it reveals exactly why the beginning is such a psychological battle. The rule is simple. Take the number 72 and divide it by your expected annual investment return. The answer is the number of years it takes for your money to double. So, let's say you're invested in a solid mix of index funds that average a 10% return over the long run. 72 divided by 10 is 7.2. That means it takes about 7 years for your money to double all by itself. This math is both the most discouraging and the most exciting thing in finance. And let's be crystal clear about why this rule is so critical. It demonstrates that the rate of your return is the accelerator pedal on your entire journey. Imagine you play it safe and only get a 6% average return. 72 divided by 6 is 12. It now takes you 12 years to double your money instead of 7. That 5-year difference in the first doubling period might not seem catastrophic, but over a 40-year investing life, it's the difference between retiring a millionaire and working an extra decade. This isn't just numbers on a page, it's your life. It's the choice between taking the express train to financial freedom or the scenic route that gets stuck in traffic for an extra 15 years. This is why understanding what you're investing in isn't a minor detail. It's the single most important decision you'll make in the quiet years. But here's the secret. The rule of 72 isn't just a passive calculator. It's your shield. It's the weapon you use to fight that voice in your head that tells you to quit. When your brain is screaming that the tiny $2,500 gain isn't worth the sacrifice, the rule of 72 is the mathematical proof that a bigger force is at work. It forces you to shift your time horizon. You stop asking, "What did my money do this month?" And you start asking, "What will my money do this decade?" It's like planting an oak tree. For the first few years, all you see is a tiny, fragile sapling. You could easily get discouraged and stop watering it. But if you understand the genetic blueprint, the rule of how an oak tree grows, you know that one day it will be a towering giant. The rule of 72 is your portfolio's genetic blueprint. It proves that the giant is coming, even when all you can see is the sapling. Think about what this means in real life. Let's say you bust your tail for 2 years and manage to save up $25,000. You're a hero. You feel amazing. But that 10% return in the first year is just $2,500. It's nice, but it's not life-changing. It barely feels like a blip. It's the equivalent of saving about $200 a month. You feel like your sacrifice was worth so much more than that. This is the moment of maximum danger. You see a friend buy a new car for $25,000 and you think, they're out there enjoying their life. And what do I have? An extra $2,000 in an account I can't even touch. The temptation to cash out, to trade that slow, boring, invisible progress for something tangible and exciting is immense. This is the psychological warfare of the quiet years. You have to understand that this slow motion start is a feature, not a bug. It's the price of admission. The math of doubling doesn't care about your feelings. A 10% return on a small number is a small number. Surviving this phase, continuing to push that heavy snowball when the peak of the mountain is completely obscured by fog, is the single greatest predictor of whether you will build life-changing wealth or not. It's not about being a genius investor. It's about having the grit to not quit when the process feels broken. And here's a truth most people miss. These quiet years aren't just a waiting game. They are a training ground. This is where you forge the identity of an investor. You're not just saving money. You are fundamentally rewiring your brain. You are teaching yourself to see a market downturn not as a catastrophe, but as a buying opportunity. You're learning to separate your emotions from your account balance. You're mastering the art of delayed gratification on a grand scale. The person who successfully navigates the quiet years isn't the same person who started. The real asset you build in this phase isn't the first $50,000 or $100,000. It's the unbreakable discipline and the long-term vision that will allow you to manage millions later on. So, if you know the journey uphill is going to be a long, slow grind, you need to be prepared for bad weather. A market crash during these quiet years can feel like a financial hurricane that threatens to melt your snowball down to nothing. This is why you can't just build any snowball. You have to build one that's resilient and designed to last. A portfolio built for early retirement isn't just about growth. It's about survival. Most people think investing is just about buying some stocks and hoping for the best. That's like building a house out of nothing but glass. It might look great on a sunny day, but it's not ready for a storm. A well-built, all-weather portfolio has 3 distinct layers, like different types of snow packed together. The first layer, the core of your snowball, is your growth engine. These are your broad market index funds, like those tracking the S&P 500 or the total world stock market. This is the light, fluffy powder that will give your snowball its size and momentum over decades. This is where you get the powerful capital appreciation that fuels that 10% average return we talked about. The second layer is your income producer. Think of this as the wet, sticky snow that helps hold everything together. These are things like real estate investment trusts, or REITs, and strong dividend-paying stocks. These assets are your cash flow machines. They spin off regular, predictable income, which you can use to reinvest and pack even more snow onto your ball. During a downturn, when growth stocks are getting hammered, these reliable dividends are like a lifeline, constantly reinforcing your portfolio. Finally, you have the outer layer, stability and protection. This is the hard, icy crust that protects your snowball from melting. These are your shock absorbers. Things like treasury bonds and a healthy cash position in a high-yield savings account. These assets won't grow as fast, but that's not their job. Their job is to hold the line when the stock market is in a free fall. They give you the liquidity you need to cover expenses without being forced to sell your growth assets at the worst possible time. Being forced to sell stocks during a crash isn't just selling low. It's carving chunks out of your snowball while it's already shrinking. That's how you lose the game. With the right balance, your money isn't just growing. It's growing, generating income, and protecting itself all at the same time. But building a resilient snowball isn't just about the types of snow you use. It's also about protecting it from the invisible forces that are constantly trying to melt it. Fees and taxes. Think of these as two thieves with tiny, silent blowtorches, constantly trying to shrink your snowball when you're not looking. A seemingly small 1% management fee doesn't sound like much, but over 30 years, it can devour nearly a third of your potential returns. That's why choosing low-cost index funds is non-negotiable. Similarly, using tax-advantaged accounts like a 401k or an IRA is like giving your snowball a weatherproof coating. Every dollar you invest pre-tax is a dollar that gets to grow untouched for decades, dramatically accelerating your compounding machine. Ignoring these two factors is like pushing the snowball uphill with the emergency brake on. There comes a day after years of pushing that something magical happens. You'll check your account and you'll realize that the investment returns over the last 12 months were more than the total amount you personally saved. This is the tipping point. This is the moment you reach the summit of the mountain. From this day forward, gravity is now on your side. Compound interest has officially overtaken your personal savings as the primary driver of your wealth. But reaching the summit introduces a new, unexpected psychological challenge. The frustration of slow growth is replaced by the fear of big losses. When your account is large enough to grow by your entire annual salary in a good year, it's also large enough to drop by your entire annual salary in a bad one. This is a level of volatility most people are not prepared for. Seeing your net worth fall by $50,000 in a single month can be terrifying, and the temptation to pull everything out and protect your gains is enormous. This is the second great test of an investor: surviving the downhill ride. It requires trusting the system you built and resisting the urge to grab the controls and crash the whole thing into a tree just to make the shaking stop. Let's go back to the rule of 72. That first 7-year doubling period felt agonizing. Let's say it took you that long to turn $50,000 into $100,000. The market did half the work, but it still felt like your journey had barely begun. But what happens in the next 7 years? Your $100,000 doubles to $200,000. And the 7 years after that, it doubles to $400,000. And then $800,000. Notice the pattern? In the first doubling period, you gained $50,000. In the fourth doubling period, you gained $400,000. The time interval was exactly the same, but the result was 8 times larger. This is the explosion. This is the downhill roll. Your role fundamentally changes. You are no longer the one pushing the snowball. You are now the one steering it, making sure it stays on course and avoids crashing into a tree. The risk at this stage isn't that you'll run out of energy pushing. The risk is that you'll get complacent and lose discipline. The temptation is to see this new, rapidly growing income and start spending it. But if you do that, you're putting the brakes on your snowball, slowing down the very force that's meant to carry you to freedom. This is where the truly wealthy separate themselves. They see the snowball accelerating, and instead of taking their foot off the gas, they slam it to the floor. Once your wealth snowball is rolling downhill, picking up speed and size on its own, you have a choice. You can either stand back and watch it go, or you can run alongside it and make it grow even faster. This is the concept of continuous reinforcement, and it's the secret weapon that turns a 20-year retirement plan into a 10-year one. Most people, when they get a raise, immediately upgrade their lifestyle. A bigger apartment, a fancier car, more expensive vacations. They take their new income and use it to build a more luxurious cage for themselves. But the person on the path to early retirement does the opposite. They get a raise and they keep their lifestyle exactly the same. That entire chunk of new money goes straight into investments. They treat every extra dollar not as something to be spent, but as a new worker they've just hired to go out and pack more snow onto their growing avalanche. The same principle applies to the income your portfolio is now generating. If your investment spit out $20,000 in dividends and capital gains this year, don't spend all of it. Reinvest at least half of it. This ensures your capital base keeps growing faster than inflation. This might sound like a small adjustment, but the impact is staggering. Let's say you invest $1,000 a month at a 10% return for 20 years. You end up with about $760,000. That's incredible. But if you simply increase your contribution by 3% every single year, just enough to keep pace with inflation, you end up with over $1 million in the same time frame. You won't even feel the difference in your budget along the way, but it completely changes your destination. Failing to plan for inflation is the silent enemy of early retirement. You're not just trying to build a big pile of money, you're trying to build a pile of money that grows faster than the cost of living. Continuous reinforcement is how you ensure that by the time you reach the bottom of the mountain, your snowball is big enough to last forever. So, in the end, the journey to financial independence isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a get-rich-for-sure system. But the price of admission is surviving the psychological test of the quiet years. The real challenge isn't mastering the math. It's mastering your own patience when the payoff feels invisible. Now, this path isn't easy. It requires you to think differently and act differently than the majority of people around you. It demands that you find satisfaction in the silent, invisible progress while the world screams for you to chase instant gratification. But the power to choose this path is completely in your hands. It's a decision you make not just once, but every day, every month, every time you choose to feed your future instead of your impulses. Your future self is counting on the decisions you make today. A decade from now, you can be standing at the bottom of the mountain, just getting ready to start the long push uphill. Or you can be at the top, watching your wealth roll on ahead of you, creating a life of freedom you once thought was impossible. The years will pass either way. The only question is where you'll be standing when they do. If this video gave you some clarity, prove it to your future self by hitting that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next video, where we'll break down exactly what kind of index funds you can use to build the core of your wealth snowball. Get your money right.